Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. XRP will one day be worth at least $100. So says the XRP community. Guys, I've got new data. It's polling data from XRP community members, and as it turns out, if you think XRP is going to hit at least $100, you're not going to sound cuckoo to anybody around these parts. It turns out over half of the XRP community believes that. I count myself among them, and while I'm not offering this as financial advice or for the purposes of hyping, this is a very critically thinking-oriented channel. I like to pride myself on that. I am thinking in the scope of global adoption when I say that. So, of course, it's contingent upon developers finding continued success upon the XRP ledger. But I'm just saying, if these visions are indeed meant, if Ripple achieves its goals, oh yeah, game on, man, and the rest of the world will come. So I've got data on that. I've got data on the reasons why XRP community members are holding XRP. You will find this fascinating. And I've got data from the XRP community stating how long they think, XRP community members at large, how long it is thought that it will take XRP to reach the maximum value it will ever have. So I'm going to share all of that with you, and it's from Hodor's blog. I'm also going to be sharing with you an example of a payment that could be settled on the Corda network that would utilize XRP. What would that actually look like? I've got an example from Matt Hamilton. He's a software engineer, very well known within the XRP community, super sharp guy, and he was nice enough to respond to something I tagged him in today, so I wanted to kind of share that with you. And then I'll close out the video with a fun piece from Cointelegraph that states, the perfect storm is a brewing for Bitcoin to reach very, very, very high prices, which, of course, is fantastic for the asset class at large, because altcoins are currently tethered to the price action of Bitcoin. Now, before we get going, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and if you're a fan of Ripple and XRP, you know what to do, subscribe. All right, so here's a tweet from Hodor. And he writes, XRP is firmly in the spotlight. Learn about the latest high-profile news impacting XRP in today's blog. This is a fantastic piece. I love Hodor's work. I am so appreciative that he takes the time on a regular basis to compile the latest news. A lot of the stuff I'd already covered, so I'm not going to cover most of it as a result. Also, it's very long, so if you're interested in this, you should definitely read through it. I will link below. The parts that I'm going to cover specifically have to do with the topic at the beginning of this. It has to do with XRP news, digital assets being at an inflection point. I think it was very well written and sharp, very insightful, so I'm going to share that portion. After that piece, I'm going to jump all the way down to the really fun stuff, which has to do with the price action and XRP getting to $100 one day. We've got to talk about that. I think that's a really fun topic. All right, so let's get into it here. The terminology used in talking about an inflection point, XRP news, digital assets, inflection point. The terminology used was carefully chosen to reflect a concept. His tweet was one of many in the previous week that centered around a large-scale communication effort by Ripple to respond with its own perspective on the recent whirlwind of media coverage for digital assets. The recent and sudden pushing of digital assets to the center stage of political discourse was brought on by Facebook's foray into the world of cryptocurrency, the publishing of their Libra white paper. The spotlight has continued through the end of July, with presentations from the Treasury Secretary of the United States and by virtue of testimony provided to and from the United States Congress. Chris Larson put it this way in his own accompanying tweet. This industry is at an inflection point. We at Ripple ask government leaders here in the U.S. and around the world to not put all crypto in one bucket. There are legitimate, formative use cases. Let's work together to advance innovation while protecting consumers. The time is now. The use of the term inflection point left an impression on me because of its precise mathematical and economic meaning. It's when the curvature of a function changes from negative to positive. It can be a generic term to mean most changes in direction or the perceived boundaries of elasticity. And when we think of digital assets and the amount of press coverage that they've received since Facebook announcement of the Libra white paper, it can mean a time where pivotal decisions are made. Typically, With greater levels of attention and scrutiny, any decision or change of direction carries enormous weight. Altering course after an inflection point becomes more difficult by a wide margin. Is he right? It looks like that's the case. The crypto market has now been around for a number of years. Regulators worldwide are starting to take it more seriously, and ordinary citizens worldwide are becoming more knowledgeable about their ability to purchase these unique digital, no counterparty assets. International organizations have been giving it greater attention for a number of reasons, and if steered correctly, the conversation could include recognition of the way in which blockchain technology can supercharge the global economy. The ability to send value, in whatever form, as easily to another person as we would send a text message, has enormous benefits for global commerce. It would speed up the velocity of money in several respects and would free up capital that has been parked in Nostra Vostra accounts. Ripple is keenly interested in these financial innovations. XRP has the potential to solve pain points associated with the legacy model of correspondent banking, and some spring businesses have cleverly coded applications that free up hidden economic value in other respects, such as renting personal property, or by enabling artists to charge fractions of a penny for viewing content. Now, in mid-2019, Ripple is methodically pointing out that direction is needed for the United States to maintain its leading position in technology. Our leaders in the U.S. should take the time to read Ripple's open letter. And I covered Ripple's open letter in a previous video on more than one occasion, actually. I read it just one time. But yeah, these are all very true words. Does it not seem like things are picking up steam? It seems to me that the staying power of XRP in my mind, it's all but proven. It's pretty well there. It's actually being adopted. You got news today about XRapid actually being used officially, put into production with MoneyGram this week. You know, XRP is going to have staying power. There is a reason for all of this. There's real utility here. And so it's a perfect segue into what I want to talk about next, which exactly has to do with price and these big numbers. $100 XRP. There's a reason that so many people believe that such huge valuations of XRP are possible. And although I don't know that it will ever hit that, I believe that it is possible, and I think it is reasonable to believe that. I think we're talking about a new asset class worth about not even $1/3 billion today. We're going to have a multi-trillion-dollar market cap, and given that I suspect there will just be a handful of winners, those that do have staying power, I think that there will be multiple individual coins that may have market caps in the trillions. You know, it's just such a small percentage of the world is currently involved, and that's why the market caps are so low. But to me, that represents such spectacular, fantastic opportunity. I am happy to be here, even though I don't know what's going to happen with certainty. It still is, it's fair to say, even though we believe that we're making rational decisions, I think I am, in investing in XRP regularly, it is fair to acknowledge this is still a highly risky venture. But that's the risk-reward scenario that we're looking at here, and so I happily jump into it, and that's why I only invest what I am willing to lose, in fact. So let me share with this. This is what led to the data about XRP community members believing that, again, over half believe that it will hit at least $100. So let me explain the demographics, and this is because this is where we got the data from, so I have to read this part to you first so that you understand where this all came from. When the term demographics is used, it invariably refers to the composition of a specific group stratified by any number of variables that can be measured at an individual level. Part of these measurements might target characteristics that you are born with, such as your age or race, or may reflect your current state, such as your economic situation or career choice. Regardless of what is measured, the study of demographics has an important place in business. Businesses are normally very curious about the makeup of their customer base, as those factors will affect the direction that marketing should take. In addition, it's wise for a business to understand the long-term trends of an industry or market to determine how best to position future changes or enhancements. While I performed some basic demographic polls when I first published my Coil blog titled, "Who Are We?", Leonidas took the idea much further. Starting in June, Leonidas configured a survey tool to capture additional characteristics of those in the XRP community, including country of residence, native language, and education level, among others. In addition, he incentivized the process, rewarding survey takers with XRP. On July 30th, he formally announced that he'd tabulated the results and published them on his popular fan site, XRP Arcade. Okay, here's the fun stuff, now that we've set the table. And you can see here's Leonidas's tweet. XRP Arcade, XRP Community 2019 demographic results. It is with great pleasure that I present the results of the XRP Arcade demographic. I would like to thank everyone that participated. And then he tags some people. The demographic survey captured an amazing 27 data points for each individual, and Leonidas compiled, analyzed, and created a color-coded graph for each one. It's not feasible to cover all of the incredible summations for the statistics here, but I've chosen to share a few of the surprises. One asked respondents to indicate what type of XRP owner they were. And so here was the question posed. This is where we're getting into the really fun stuff. The question posed, why do you own XRP? Here are the options: day trading, investment, using for everyday purchases, I'm unbanked, or prefer not to say. So let's go through each one. Day trading, 3.6%. Investment, in parentheses HODL, 94.1%. 94.1% investment, HODL. Next one, using for everyday purchases, 5.3%. Unbanked population here within the XRP community, 1.7%. And the people that said prefer not to say, 4.2%. I got to point something out when I see this astonishing number for investment. I have long said, this is the second study, I can't remember the first one, this is the second survey I've seen indicating that XRP investors are long-term mofos. I know I am. I am a long-term guy. I will hold however long. I'm never going to sell all of my XRP. I will happily hold for decades and decades. I don't care. I'm only 36 years old. I'm happy to do this. It's so fun for me to follow this anyway. I can imagine, because part of the fun is like having skin in the game. It really is. Like, it changes it. If I didn't have skin in the game, this wouldn't be nearly as interesting. And so that's one of the reasons I don't want to sell. It's just too fun to follow. That's my own personal reason. But consider this. When it comes to the reasons people invest, have you heard the FUD out there that XRP is too fast, and as such, it doesn't need to have a high price? It doesn't need to have a high price to facilitate transactions. It just needs liquidity, and a low price is fine, and that's why XRP will never be rewarded. Have you heard that from FUDsters out there? Well, look, while it's true that XRP is fast and the price doesn't need to be high to facilitate, relatively, I mean, you can say what high means, that's so subjective. But there's technically truth to that statement, but that has nothing to do with how people choose to invest. People invest in XRP, like for example, yes, it's volatile, but I still consider it to be a store of value, which should increase as time passes. It should either stay stable or increase, and given the nature of crypto, I believe it will dramatically increase, which is not financial advice, but I believe that. I personally do. And I don't have a financial background, but I want to be real careful when I'm talking about money here. No financial background whatsoever. I'm regular Joe Schmo. Most people listening to this probably are too. I'm sure there's some people listening that have financial backgrounds, which is cool. I'm just saying, most people, they're long-term people. And so, from an investment perspective, the way that people are treating this is, as long as they can see that there is actual adoption of XRP, that's what instills confidence to park money there as a store of value, because there is actual utility. It actually has nothing to do with how quick XRP is. Nothing to do with how quick XRP. I would be willing to bet, out of the 474 respondents here, I bet none of them were sitting there trying to calculate how much XRP needs to be worth to figure out what it would get to so that they can sell it. I bet none of them did that. That's not how humans behave, and that's why it's such a bunk argument. And there are other reasons, too. Most XRP at any given moment is not for sale. It's not for sale on exchanges. Most is just being held. So you can imagine what that does in regards to supply and demand. Most isn't even available. I don't care if there's 100 billion. You can't buy most of it. It's not on the market. Okay. Now let's proceed. Let's get to the price stuff now. Here's the next thing that's covered. So anyway, writes, this indicates to me that most XRP owners are long-term investors. For a while, I felt like perhaps I'm in the minority of XRP owners when it comes to my own approach of buy and hold, but it looks like there are plenty of others in the community. Another surprise was the price that most survey takers expect XRP to reach in the long run. So here's the next question. What price do you expect XRP to reach in the long run. And you can see there's a pie chart, so if you want to pause and take a look at this, feel free to do so. I will also link below in case you want to check this out more in depth or read more parts of Hodor's blog here. But I'm not going to run through every one of these. There's a lot of different buckets of how what you could click on for where you think the price is potentially going to go here. So let me read the explanation as Hodor wrote it here. Without much competition, it's apparent that the majority of XRP owners predict that XRP will top out above $100, and almost half of the group believes that the zenith will be above $1,000. You heard that right. Almost, like, okay, not almost all, but over half think at least 100, and then almost as many think that it'll reach 1,000. Right? It's an interesting observation, and Leonidas thinks that price expectations were correlated with the number of XRP owned by the individual taking the survey. And that is genuinely fascinating. Look, I tend to think, considering XRP got to an all-time high of $3.92 based on speculation alone. XRP wasn't even being commercially used in anything at that time. Nothing. And it is today now, it is. But it got to that purely on speculation. So, given that the crypto asset class absolutely has staying power, it is never going the way of the dodo. It will be here for the rest of mankind. And given the fact that there's real utility here, I think the all-time high of $3.92, you look at that and you just got to say to yourself, we ain't seen nothing yet. I firmly believe that. I really do, although I don't make price predictions, mostly because I don't want to put a timestamp on this. And I'd just be making stuff. I wouldn't be good at it. I think it would be disingenuous. That's the reason I don't want to make price predictions. But and when I look at the percentage of humans that even know about XRP versus what I believe will be coming in, especially through institutional investment in the coming years and decades, when I consider that, and I'm looking at XRP actually being adopted, I'm just like, holy cow. Like, what is the limit? I mean, from a technical perspective, there is no limit in terms of price. But what will it get to? My gosh, I don't know, but a lot. But that's why I keep monitoring this too, because if anything changes, I'm just going to be a straight shooter with you. If anything starts to go south with XRP or developers building on top, I'm going to cover that on this channel. Don't you want to be informed if you've got your own money in this? I will cover it if bad stuff happening, but I got to be honest here. In terms of developments, things are going the direction you would want to, and eventually XRP will decouple from Bitcoin in terms of price. And I think XRP, unless something dramatically changes, which is why I'm not saying this definitively, but based on available data, I do believe that XRP will likely beat out Bitcoin in terms of market cap. Utility will win the day. That's my entire investment thesis, and I'm sticking to it. I'm definitely sticking to it. Okay, and okay, here's the next question. Okay. And the final surprise from my standpoint was the collective result for the question, in what year do you believe XRP will reach its maximum value? So, win Moon, win Lambo. That's how we should have worded it. Win Moon, win Lambo, right? That's what we want to know, right? Okay. But he worded it, in what year do you believe XRP will reach its maximum value? Okay, so I'm going to share with you the results, but I got to say first, you can pick 1 year, anywhere from 2019 up to 2030. All right, prefer not to say. My honest opinion is he should have. Just my critical analysis of this. I really appreciate the fact that he put this together. If I were doing it, though, I wouldn't have capped it off at 2030. I would have made either tons more years available or done them in buckets to get a range. But I'm not confident that you're going to see XRP's all-time high in the year 2030. Well, seriously, I won't be surprised if it happens well past that. That doesn't mean that I'm saying 11 years. It's going to take over 11 years before to moon. I'm not saying 11 years then Lambo. I'm not saying that. I think it's going to go parabolic again far sooner than that. I don't know when. Maybe the next year. I don't know. Probably a lot sooner. But if you're actually talking maximum value, I doubt it'll happen by 2030. I think this thing's going to rise, because even if you get to the point where crypto isn't volatile, wouldn't you think that it increases in value as more humans just are born and maybe, I don't know. You factor in all sorts of other macro metrics. There's global inflation. There's all sorts of stuff. So relative to other currencies, what's it worth? That's something to consider also. But and that has more so to do with buying power, I suppose. But in terms of like what would actually be invested in it, which does push up price, you're talking about supply and demand. I don't know. I mean, gold was flat for a long time, but even then, it had a parabolic run up when during the 2008 financial collapse. It way ramped up, and so I don't think that it would be, from my perspective, reasonable to say that the all-time high is happening within the next 11 years or it's not happening at all. That's not my perspective. But again, that said, I do think something parabolic will happen sooner than later, at least relative to this timeline of going all the way to 2030. But anyway, so here's what Hodor wrote about it. This chart reveals that 1 in 5 XRP community members feels that XRP will reach its highest value per unit approximately 10 years from now. Upon seeing this result, I was initially skeptical, but then I remembered that Bitcoin achieved its most recent all-time high at the end of 2017, which put it roughly 9 years after it was created. Perhaps there is wisdom in the crowd. Perhaps it will take years for XRP to reach its maximum value. There are 24 more categories that are just as fascinating as the above 3 that I've profiled here. I urge you to fully read through the results on your own. Leonidas has provided a fantastic point-in-time basis for comparison 1 year hence. It would be interesting to see what these numbers look like if we use the same questions again in 12 months. And I hope he does. That would be a real fun just for comparison's sake. So what do you guys think? I'd be curious here in the comments below. Why are you holding? Is it for investment? Is it trading? You're buying stuff with XRP? What is it? I'd like to know what you think XRP is going to get to and how long is it going to take to get to its maximum value? I'm very curious as to what others think. I'm not going to put a timestamp on it, but like I said, $100, like that, that is not nuts. It would only sound ridiculous if there were no adoption, and if, let's say, Ripple and no other developer on top of the XRP ledger would ever achieve success on a truly global scale, then I'd say, yeah, of course it wouldn't. But that's what we're banking on, isn't it? That they do find success. And I'm going to keep monitoring on a daily basis, quite literally. But yeah, certainly optimistic. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. All right, on to the next piece. This is a real quick thing I just wanted to share. There was a debate between Anthony Pompliano, Bitcoin Maximus, and Goldbug Peter Schiff. And I've already covered it in a previous video, what I thought about that, so I'm not going to do it. But I wrote a couple tweets in response to Pomp, and I thought I'd just share them with you because it kind of sums up what I think. But Pomp wrote, "Bang Bang sat down and schooled Peter Schiff on the future for an hour," and then there's a link to the to the debate there, which was good. It was almost an hour long. I really enjoyed listening to it. Anyway, I wrote, "Great debate. Peter's main problem is the underlying value of crypto. There's real-world utility that you didn't explain to him. There's one crypto being used in commercial production, proving utility. It's XRP. Tell him so he'll understand crypto having market value and price." And then I wrote, "Without a decentralized digital asset like XRP, global remittance pain points can't be solved. Unless you think crypto will be used in place of fiat currency peer-to-peer, but that may be decades away. Blockchain can be used to fix existing cross-border money transfers today." And so that's why I wrote that. And it's just amazing to me. You can have real adoption of cryptocurrencies by financial institutions, and it benefits retail customers, and the retail customers and the financial institutions, none of them have to touch crypto. They don't even have to know it exists to get the benefits. Why would we not proceed with that? Of course, it makes a ton of sense. Next year, there's a tweet. This is a tweet from Galgatron, and he's talking about the concept of settling in XRP via Swift's GPI, which isn't possible. And so when he wrote that, I wanted to find out what he actually meant by that. And I did get some clarification, but just to be clear, so Swift implements with Corda to settle via Nostro accounts. You can take advantage of the Swift network if you're just using the Corda network and the Corda settler. That does not tie in with XRP. It simply does not. There is no interface there. Okay. And so when Galgatron wrote, "Settling in XRP via GPI is the choice of the customer, not Swift," I read that and I was like, not quite sure. So I wanted to get clarification. So I responded to Galgatron and I wrote, "Help me if I'm mistaken. My understanding is the customer can choose to settle with XRP, but that it's not possible to do so via GPI. That's what I learned from @Hammertoe," and that's Matt Hamilton. Unless I misunderstood what I read from him, which is possible. I was pretty confident I didn't misunderstand, and I didn't, but I thought, just in case. Galgatron was kind enough to respond, though, and he wrote, "GPI has the ability to interact with DLT. A GPI XRP interface can be made, and thus GPI could deliver XRP to a recipient. By the way, I want to point out, I made that point, I think yesterday, it was 1 or 2 days ago, that even though this technology doesn't interface with XRP, it can be created. You could write up new software that's, if you're Swift, that's similar to XRapid. You absolutely could do it. You can do it with whatever cryptocurrency you want too. So Galvatron's basically making that point there. And then he writes, this isn't the same as bridging with XRP, however, which is what everyone is thinking of when they imagine Swift using XRP. And so I responded, okay, that's what I was thinking. Currently such an interface doesn't exist, but it could be created. Thanks. And then Galvatron responded, yeah, it's an obscure edge case that's very inefficient. And so then I responded, is it your understanding that Core to Settler will settle to XRP, as in destination recipient gets XRP and not fiat currency, or that Core to Settler taps into a pool of XRP liquidity somewhere and uses XRP as a bridge to convert to a fiat currency? And then Galvatron wrote, Corda is just an interface to the XRP ledger. There's no XRapid analog, which is exactly how Matt Hamilton described it as well. He said, as far as it goes with XRP being used on the Corda Settler, it's literally the payout is in XRP, and that's one thing that I didn't realize prior to anyone explaining it. My understanding initially was that XRP was used in the background to facilitate the settlement, kind of like XRapid. But that was prior to me, because mind you, like R3, they're not really spelling this stuff out. And so that's what I initially thought of, just because that's what I was kind of used to in the way that Ripple's utilizing the XRapid technology. So that's not the case. With the Core to Settler, it really does settle directly to XRP, not to a fiat currency. And so then I responded to Galvatron. I wrote, I'm wondering in what real-world way can the Core to Settler use/interact with XRP? And Galvatron wrote, I believe the XRP business-to-business and business-to-personal use cases will evolve rather quickly once regulations clear the path. Now check this out, though. Matt Hamilton jumped in here, and I appreciate this. He responded to my question of, okay, what would a real-world example be of settling with XRP on the Core to Settler? And he wrote, on the basis that it causes a payment to be made from one XRP wallet to another, for example, say you run a business and I run a business, we could agree that financial obligations between us are settled via XRP. And then he gives an example. Here's the example. All right, you send me 1 ton of steel and I owe you $1,000. Your books reflect a $1,000 credit and my books reflect a $1,000 liability. Using Core to Settler, it would calculate that if I send you 3,300 XRP, then we are settled. It then transfers 3,300 XRP from my XRP wallet to yours. So there you go. That is a perfect real-world example. Thank you, Matt Hamilton, for laying that down. And so I responded to Matt, thanks for the example. That's certainly fast and efficient settlement, but also makes me wonder how many businesses will want to settle to a volatile cryptocurrency. Because again, the whole thing, because this is not like XRapid. XRapid, market makers take the risk of volatility. That's part of their business model. And so end users are just getting their fiat currency. With the Core to Settler, they get XRP. And that's the way it's written now. You can have additional software after that it instantly converts. That doesn't exist now, but we're still building out the infrastructure. So anyway, Matt wrote in response to that, this is true. There is also the aspect of what the legal/financial/bookkeeping implications are. However, if XRP's price stabilizes over the long term with increased volume, then it could become less of an issue. Indeed, I was thinking that as well. Volatility, it's not going to be here forever. Anyway, and then he also wrote, also remember, there's nothing stopping the company selling the XRP as it arrives, for example, like what XRapid does. If they are looking to lock in the fiat price, they could trade it for a fiat IOU on the XRP ledger, like the Bitstamp USD, for example. Exactly. And so anyway, very appreciative of both Galvatron and Matt taking some time to respond to my queries there. Here's a tweet from Mr. BXRP, and he writes, being an XRP investor is not easy. While other kids are seeing returns, we see meetings, partnerships, and new avenues of future adoption. I am not here for good returns, but for generational wealth. No matter how badly you want a baby, it takes 9 months. Be patient. That kind of made me chuckle when I read that. Well said, Mr. B. For me, yeah, it is. Patience is the name of the game. If you're a believer in this, then you're going to have to hold. You don't know when the next parabolic run is going to be, but if you believe there's going to be one, you better make sure that you've got exposure to this when it happens. So that doesn't mean holding, if you want to do that. Last piece, then I got to close out this video. It's going a little bit longer than I was anticipating, but that friggin' happens. I never know how long one of these videos is going to be when I start recording. I really don't. So anyway, this is titled Macro Factors Creating Perfect Storm to Drive Up Bitcoin Price Report. Digital asset research firm Delphi Digital says that the macroeconomic landscape is creating the perfect storm to ignite Bitcoin price appreciation. In a fresh report cited by Forbes on August 1st, the researchers isolate the dovish turn in global central banking policy as the standout factor likely to propel Bitcoin's price skywards. And here's a quote. First, and arguably most important, sentiment from global central banks took a drastic turn towards more dovish monetary policies. The Fed, ECB, BOJ, PBOC, and many others are now preparing market participants for more rate cuts and additional stimulus measures as they attempt to keep the current economic expansion going. Interesting indeed. Central bankers' consensus around the needs for quantitative easing stems a geopolitical landscape shaped by protracted trade tensions between the United States and China, disappointing GDP growth in Germany, and the anticipated aftershock of a possible no-deal Brexit. And then they have a subheading called The Digital Gold Narrative. Beyond monetary easing, the increasing risk of fiat currency devaluation represents a longer-term catalyst that is likely to further drive the price of both Bitcoin and physical gold, the report argues. As is often discussed, Bitcoin's scarcity by design and its potential to serve as a store of value in a faltering world economy has earned it the moniker of digital gold, a narrative consolidated in Delphi's new analysis. In a discussion of the two assets, the report argues that the digital gold view is ever more relevant amid extreme monetary policies and rising geopolitical tensions, and that, here's a quote, the relative size of Bitcoin's market value compared to the investable gold market, for example, makes it a tempting opportunity for investors starving for assets with above-average growth potential as well. Indeed it does. Delphi Digital, in fact, predicts that given its unique non-sovereign properties, the investable Bitcoin market could in future outgrow the current gold market over $7 trillion as of fall 2018. Think about that. And, I have said this before. There's no reason that long-term successful digital assets, cryptocurrencies, multi-trillion dollar market caps, that is what's coming. That is absolutely people, and not just individuals like you and I, yes, us too, but institutions are going to want exposure to this because it's not going away. It's further diversification. And you can just put in a few percent of your the entirety of the funds that you manage if you're a hedge fund, and if you're an institutional investor at large. Just put in like a few percentage points, and my God, the opportunity for asymmetrical returns, it's there. So anyway, as reported just yesterday, a former top-level executive at Goldman Sachs has similarly predicted that Bitcoin's market cap could hit around $8 trillion in the future. So I think I'll just wrap it up there. I don't need to read the rest of this piece there. But I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!